Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are strapping in for something that sits right on the border of philosophy, metaphysics, and, well, even computer science.
It really does.
And this isn't just an intellectual exercise. It is, based on the source stock we've analyzed, a complete logical system for understanding existence.
That's right. We're tackling a premise that seems almost too audacious, too radical, and maybe even too comforting to be taken seriously at first glance. But we are going to treat it like a mathematical theorem.
Yep.
If we accept the initial axiom, we have to see where the logic takes us.
Regardless of how far it deviates from conventional thought.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. The core axiom, the absolute foundation we are building this entire structure on, is startlingly simple, and yet it demands everything.
It does. Whatever happens is optimum.
Right. And that's not just a call for positive thinking, is it? It's much deeper.
Oh, much deeper. It's an insistence that the state of reality at any given millisecond is the absolute perfect, most efficient, most balanced state possible for the totality of the system.
So we're adopting a radical form of determinism.
We are, but one that is, you could say, inherently benevolent.
So we're essentially taking ideas like Stoic acceptance, accept the things you cannot change, and just turbocharging it.
Completely. We're pushing it further than traditional philosophy dares. We're moving towards something closer to, say, Leibniz's best of all possible worlds.
But instead of seeing God's hand, we are looking for the inevitable logic of a perfect algorithm.
That's the key difference. Leibniz, he really struggled with the problem of evil.
Of course. Why would a perfect God create suffering?
Exactly. This modern axiom, whatever happens is optimum,
Right.
It forces those painful events back into the definition of perfection.
Meaning suffering, therefore, must be an optimal mechanism.
It has to be, logically.
And the mission of this dive is to follow that journey. We start with the immediate visceral effect on the individual's psyche, like why you shouldn't regret missing the bus. And we logically progress to a metaphysical singularity, asking, what must the very substance of reality be if we accept that everything that happens is absolutely optimum?
If the universe runs at 100% efficiency, what is the nature of the universe itself? That's the ultimate question here.
So let's start small. Let's start with you, the listener. If you truly internalize this axiom, what are the first 4 places your mind goes?
The source material lays out 4 immediate psychological and pragmatic destinations.
The first, and maybe the most powerful release for the human mind, is the extinction of regret.
This is the low-hanging fruit of the axiom, but it's massive. I mean, it's life-changing. If whatever happens is optimum, then regret ceases to be merely unhealthy.
It becomes a logical error, a fundamental one.
Right. Regret requires you to believe that a past action could have resulted in a better present reality.
But if the present reality is, by definition, optimum, then any alternative path would have been suboptimum.
Or, and this is critical, it would have been impossible. So you are spending all this emotional and mental energy comparing what is to what could not have been.
And the consequence of realizing that is, it's truly freeing.
It is. Our source material points out that the human mind is largely crippled by the burden of what if. You know the feeling?
Oh, completely. You didn't invest in that one stock. You failed that job interview. You moved cities when you should have stayed.
All of that. The optimum viewpoint just dismantles that emotional grinding wheel. You realize that your specific path, with all its seeming errors, was the precise calibration required to bring you to the perfection of this moment.
Let's use that classic example from the source.
Yeah.
Missing a bus.
Okay.
From your local perspective, missing the bus is a failure, it's a delay, a suboptimum event because you're now late.
Right. My whole day is thrown off.
But the optimum perspective reveals that the delay was necessary. Maybe you didn't just prevent a crash down the road.
Or maybe the solitude of waiting for the next bus was the necessary space for you to have a critical realization about your career.
Or perhaps, more subtly, that specific delay forced you to encounter someone else who was also delayed. A conversation that, a year later, provides a major breakthrough in your life.
The moment itself, exactly as it unfolded, was the perfect path. It could not have been otherwise, because if it could have been otherwise, the current reality wouldn't be the most efficient configuration. It's a closed loop.
That is immense peace, I agree. But this leads to the critical transition question we saw in the sources.
Which is?
Does this immediate peace lead to passivity? Does it mean I should just sit back and wait for the optimum to happen?
Or does this freeing of mental energy actually activate something deeper within us?
Exactly.
And it does. It activates the desire for alignment, which we'll definitely discuss later. but it moves us right into the second destination.
Which is the forest fire perspective, or redefining tragedy.
And this is precisely why we don't become passive
This is where we stop viewing harsh events as bad.
and start viewing them as functional.
That's the key analytical shift, right?
That's the whole game. We have to apply the system's metaphor. Consider a large-scale tragedy, like a natural disaster or an economic crash. These events seem destructive, painful, and overwhelmingly tragic in the short term, locally.
To the individual, absolutely.
But for the long-term health of the whole system, the event acts as an efficiency mechanism.
The forest fire analogy is perfect here.
It really is. It's painful to the individual tree, no question.
Okay.
But the fire clears underbrush, it eliminates weak or diseased trees, allows necessary seeds to germinate.
And ensures a healthier, more robust, and more fire-resistant ecosystem down the line. It's a systemic correction.
So we stop applying moral or emotional judgment to large-scale events. A business failing, for instance, isn't an absolute tragedy.
It's the market efficiently optimizing capital and human resources toward better, more viable, or more necessary ideas.
The resources are reallocated. A political conflict isn't just division. It is the systemic pressure needed to force a fundamental, necessary change in policy or structure that was previously resistant to minor adjustments.
I have to inject some friction here, though. That sounds incredibly cold.
It can, on the surface.
I mean, if I tell someone your devastating loss was just a corrective function for the system, I sound like an uncaring academic.
Of course.
Can we truly maintain empathy for suffering if we believe that suffering is fundamentally optimum?
That's the tightrope walk. And it requires understanding the difference between the local and the global views, the difference between Unit 1, the person, and the whole, the system.
Okay.
Empathy is a necessary local mechanism. It binds humans together, and that binding itself is optimum for social cohesion. We feel empathy precisely because we are part of the system that needs to register the pain of its parts.
So the pain is real, and the empathetic response is also required and optimum. But the source of the pain is still rooted in this idea of efficiency.
Precisely. The pain is the signal that change is required. To maintain empathy is to recognize the functional necessity of that error signal. We understand that the fire is necessary, but we still mourn the loss of the trees.
I see. So the axiom frees us from the self-destructive narrative that the pain should not exist.
It teaches us the pain must exist for the next optimum state to unfold.
That distinction, the pain is real, but the resistance to the pain is a logical error. That's profound. And it leads perfectly into the third destination, the paradox of effort.
Right. This addresses the fear of passivity directly.
If everything that happens is optimum, why should I bother striving, working, or even getting out of bed?
Because your effort is not separate from the optimum. It is the driving engine of the optimum. The axiom does not suggest we are robots in a static, perfect world.
No, it suggests we are active variables in a dynamic, constantly optimizing system.
Which means we need to clarify what optimum means here. It isn't a static state of perfection like a fixed statue.
It's a dynamic, ever-changing flow state.
Correct. The system is always balancing itself. If you feel a complete lack of desire to work and you sit on the couch all day, that inactivity is, at that moment, optimum.
So my laziness is optimum.
In that moment, yes. The universe required that specific input zero movement to balance the system in that millisecond. Perhaps you needed rest. Perhaps someone else needed to step up because you weren't available.
But conversely, if you feel a burning, almost compulsive desire to work intensely for 18 hours, to run a marathon or launch a complex project,
That immense, intense effort is also optimum. It is the required energy input. The axiom suggests we are variables in a self-balancing universal algorithm, adjusting the balance point continuously.
so your decision, your action, your specific brand of energy expenditure is exactly what the universe needed right now.
Exactly.
This radically challenges the notion of free will as we usually conceive it, as the ability to choose right or wrong.
It does, because the axiom eliminates the possibility of a truly wrong choice. The choice you make is, by definition, the optimum choice that was required in that moment to push the system forward. The effort is the unfolding of the optimum.
And this eliminates the paralyzing fear of analysis paralysis.
Completely. So many people fear making the wrong choice. If you accept the axiom, you simply choose. Whatever the consequence, that consequence was the optimum data point needed for the future. You are never wrong.
You're only generating highly specific, necessary data.
And that leads us to the final fourth destination, which provides a conceptual framework for that data.
The data processing universe.
Here, The metaphor shifts completely to complex systems theory and computing. The universe is a supercomputer running endless simulations, seeking efficiency and understanding.
So what happens when we witness what we typically call failure? Say a massive engineering project explodes.
Traditionally, an explosion is a catastrophic failure, a waste of resources, time, and money.
Right.
But in a data processing universe operating under the optimum axiom, failure is just a result. It's a data point with a specific negative value.
Like in a simulation.
Exactly. If you were running a complex physics simulation and the configuration exploded, that explosion was optimum because it provided the necessary data. This specific combination of variables does not hold a stable structure.
So it was the most efficient and fastest way to reveal the truth about that system's constraints.
It was. So there is truly no such thing as failure, only data acquisition. The waste product of the failure is the valuable insight needed for the next iteration.
The implication is breathtaking. The purpose of existence might not be to reach some final perfect destination, a static outcome.
The purpose is simply to learn everything there is to know about itself, to learn what works by systematically exhausting, in the most efficient manner possible, everything that doesn't.
We are living experiments constantly running, generating data points for the whole.
Hmm.
That recontextualizes human history, doesn't it? Every war, every plague, every rise and fall of empire is not a deviation from the plan.
But an efficient, necessary, and optimum data set acquired by the system.
We are the system running experiments on itself.
Precisely. We have established that the whole is constantly optimizing, but now we have to tighten the constraint, because if the whole is optimizing, why does the part still hurt?
Exactly. If my business fails or my relationship ends, I still feel the pain and the loss.
And that takes us directly into the conflict at the heart of the system.
Okay, this is where we identify the crucial tension. We've defined the optimum in global terms. The forest fire is good for the ecosystem.
Right.
But the individual tree still burns, and that burning is still painful to the local unit. We need to introduce the local perspective, the man as a neural network thought experiment, to understand why that pain is necessary.
This is the local versus global optimization problem. And the sources stress that the optimum of the whole cannot be achieved if every part optimizes perfectly for itself.
We see this in biology.
We do. If a single cell optimizes purely for its own persistence and replication, it becomes a cancer that destroys the organism. The survival of the part is often detrimental to the persistence of the whole.
So let's define this local player. We'll call him Unit 1. He represents the individual, the ego.
Okay, Unit 1's entire universe is his neural network, his brain, and the body it controls. Without it, the universe ceases to exist for him.
So his prime directive is simple and absolute.
It's survival, the persistence of his neural network, and the continuation of his consciousness. His criteria for optimization is purely survival and comfort.
Anything that supports his continuation is good.
And anything that threatens it is bad. Simple as that.
The friction here is immense. Unit 1 cannot optimize the whole. If he stops fighting for survival, the data flow stops. So how does the whole manage this necessary selfish part?
It needs the necessary dilution.
A delusion.
Yes. For the whole to gain valid, useful data about its boundaries, its efficiency, and its constraints, Unit 1 must be programmed to believe that his own individual survival is the single most important thing in the universe.
Because if he didn't fight tooth and nail, if he wasn't afraid of dying,
he wouldn't generate the stress, the effort, the ingenuity, and the complexity that the global system requires for its evolution.
So the illusion of separation and the drive for self-preservation are optimum programming decisions made by the whole.
Exactly. And this allows us to deeply redefine suffering, regret, shame, fear. That psychological pain we discussed earlier, it isn't a moral failing.
No. The source defines it using neuroscientific and computational terms.
It is a loss function in the brain.
Let's slow down on that jargon. We need to unpack loss function for the listener. What is it, and what does it feel like in everyday life?
In simple terms, a loss function is the calculation within a neural network, or any optimizing algorithm, that quantifies the difference between the desired outcome and the actual outcome.
So the bigger the difference, the greater the loss, and the stronger the signal to change the process.
Precisely.
Okay, so if Unit 1 desires comfort and survival, that's the desired outcome, and he experiences pain or loss, the actual outcome.
The loss function calculates a large difference, a big error signal. This is then backpropagated through the network.
And that backpropagation, that's the feeling.
That is the intense, unpleasant feeling of regret or shame or guilt. Unit 1's brain is literally screaming, error. Adjust weights. You experienced pain and loss. Do not do that again, or find a better way to ensure survival.
The suffering is the mechanism that ensures the network reprograms itself for better, more efficient survival in the future.
So the feeling of badness is not suboptimum. It is the necessary and optimum component of the optimization machinery. The experience of badness is the fuel for learning.
That reveals the profound paradox of suffering.
It does. The pain Unit 1 experiences is optimum because it is the only reliable way to generate the specific data needed to keep the overall simulation running effectively.
So Unit 1's definition of good and bad.
It's purely a heuristic, a necessary illusion the system tells itself to guarantee the required output of effort and data.
This is a fantastic intellectual framework, but it hits a wall when we consider the most extreme friction point.
It does.
Let's push this to the absolute limit using the crash scenario. Unit 1, fighting for his life, is attacked by a tiger and loses.
This is the ultimate confrontation between the local directive and the global axiom.
From Unit 1's view, this is maximum non-optimum. His universe is ending. His prime directive failed spectacularly. This is the moment of ultimate injustice and failure.
But from the whole's view, the application of our axiom, this remains optimum.
How?
The universe has optimized in two crucial cold ways. First, through energy transfer.
Meaning?
The tiger being the more efficient and successful configuration of matter in that moment, faster, stronger, a smarter predator, survives. This continues the flow of energy and pushes the evolutionary line toward greater efficiency and complexity.
Okay, and the second way is even harsher.
It is data pruning. Unit 1, in the moment of his demise, proved to be an inefficient configuration, too slow, too unaware, or simply positioned incorrectly.
And the universe, acting as the ultimate self-correcting supercomputer.
Instantly deletes the inefficient code to free up resources and memory for better future iterations. The extinction of Unit 1 is the most efficient conclusion to that specific configuration's life cycle.
Wait, I have to stop you there. Calling the death of a complex, feeling being deleting inefficient code, feels morally bankrupt.
I understand.
Even if it is logically sound under the axiom, where is the justification for that cruelty?
The justification lies in the realization that the running was the point.
The running was the point.
Unit 1 was programmed to chase the carrot survival. But the ultimate value generated was the effort he expended, the ingenuity he employed while trying to survive. The suffering, the fear, the fight, that was the deity the universe required.
So if he had survived,
The universe would have gathered a different, but still optimum data set. Since he died, the universe gained the data of that specific failure mode. Both outcomes provide perfect information.
so the man is a tragic hero. A machine that must believe in a victory it is ultimately destined to lose, just to generate the necessary complexity and data for the universe.
And the only way out of that profound tragedy is to stop believing in the illusion of Unit 1.
The only way out is to achieve philosophical and emotional non-dualism with the system.
And that happens when Unit 1 transcends the fear that drove the neural network in the first place.
Okay, this is where we cross the event horizon. How does Unit 1, the person fighting the tiger, find a way to accept the axiom fully, moving from mere survival instinct to true alignment with reality?
Well, this requires the dissolution of the ego.
The conflict between the ego, the survival program, and the axiom, whatever happens as optimum, has to be resolved.
And it's resolved by the destruction of the former. The only way Unit 1 can accept his potential optimum destruction is if he realizes his premise about death was fundamentally flawed.
Which brings us to the end of the survival error.
The man must deduce that if the whole is truly optimum, his termination cannot be a deletion or a waste.
It has to be a transformation or a code update.
Right. The terrifying fear that drives the neural network, the terror of non-existence, the fear of the system crashing, it just evaporates once death is reframed.
He realizes he is not a candle being extinguished.
He is the energy being rerouted into a new optimum configuration.
And this realization triggers a massive fundamental shift in identity that the source calls the shift from player to lucid dreamer.
Before accepting the axiom, the man is the sleeper. He is operating inside a video game, running for his life. The monsters are real, the stakes are infinite. Death means oblivion.
And this belief directly generates immense, unnecessary suffering and stress. He is completely identified with the avatar.
But the lucid one realizes the fundamental nature of the experience. He is not the avatar.
He is the underlying awareness, the code, or the consciousness powering the entire console and generating the dream itself.
And this changes everything about pain. Pain is no longer wrong or a sign of system failure. It becomes high-intensity information. Sensation.
So if he cuts his hand, he feels the sheer intensity of the sensation, but he observes it without the destructive psychological narrative attached.
Right. No more, this shouldn't be happening to me. I am being persecuted by reality.
The suffering transmutates from an error to pure information. The psychological suffering, that layer of resistance built on the illusion of separation, is what dissolves.
The sensation remains, but the emotional charge vanishes. The system has learned the lesson of the loss function. The old loss function was pain, bad, avoid.
And the new one.
The new loss function is pain, information, observe and adjust. The suffering is functionally necessary for the data, but the internal resistance to it is now identified as the error.
So the optimization criteria completely changes. It shifts from survival, which is fundamentally fear-driven, reactive, and local,
To alignment, which is reality-driven, proactive, and global.
the man's personal will aligns perfectly with the universe's will. So if he gets sick,
He no longer fights the sickness as an enemy. He observes, the universe is doing sickness right now. How fascinating.
this is the optimal physical state required to teach me something, or to purge something, or to slow me down. He accepts the moment as the perfect foundation for the next.
Yes. And this shift must have immediate, radical consequences for his actions if he pursues a goal and fails spectacularly.
He doesn't collapse into despair or self-loathing.
No. He observes the failure as a perfect piece of data, a necessary calibration. This path, executed with these variables, results in this outcome. The outcome is optimum.
He cannot be defeated, because his defeat is exactly what was supposed to happen.
He stops defining his worth by his persistence or his perceived victory.
He becomes, as the source describes, liquid.
Mm.
If you can't be defeated, if you truly believe every event is necessary, you are no longer limited by boundaries.
And that leads to the section's ultimate conclusion, the ultimate realization, the illusion of separation.
The ego's core mistake, the structural flaw in the Unit 1 program, was this illusion, the belief that he was a standalone entity fighting against a hostile or indifferent external world.
And the correction is revolutionary. The man realizes he is not the finite neural network fighting.
He is the infinite underlying electricity flowing through it.
Yes. Whether the network is successfully built up through survival or torn down by the tiger, the energy, the intelligence, the optimum remains constant. The self, the I, persists across the transformation.
This is where the mathematical axiom leads to profound spiritual realization.
It is. Accepting the axiom means the death of the ego occurs before the physical death. The individual is reborn as a conscious instrument of the whole, completely aligned, no longer driven by the local fear of boundary dissolution.
Now we take this huge personal realization, the death of the ego, and apply it to the grand stage of biological history. If the universe isn't driven by fear, what is the motive force of life?
The source material forces us to challenge what it calls the zombie narrative of evolution.
The standard narrative, the zombie narrative.
Yes, it's the story we tell ourselves about survival. It states that life is complex only because it is driven by fear, scarcity, and death.
So life is just this chaotic mess that only developed consciousness because the simple forms kept getting eaten, forcing complexity as a desperate defense mechanism.
Exactly. So under the zombie narrative, we are complex creatures, yes, but fundamentally just animated dead matter zombies, whose only higher purpose is a panic-driven, neurotic hunger for survival.
So our poetry, our art, our consciousness are framed merely as byproducts of this desperate flight from entropy.
And this narrative is profoundly suboptimum if our axiom holds true.
Right. A universe built on pure, random accident and fear is inefficient and ugly.
And the sheer exuberance of life, the colors, the song, the capacity for abstract thought, it's too excessive to be merely a survival mechanism,
It's true. If survival were the only goal, we would all still be optimized bacteria.
which are far better at simple persistence than fragile humans are.
So if the optimum axiom is true, the complexity of life must serve a higher purpose than mere duration.
This forces the inversion. Evolution by love, the avatar narrative.
Okay.
The complexity suggests the universe is optimizing for meaning, experience, and expression, not just duration. Life is not a fugitive running from death. Life is a creator exploring its latent space.
The realm of all possibilities.
Mm.
We need to spend some time defining that term, latent space. It's highly technical in AI and computational fields. How does it apply here?
Think of latent space as the underlying blueprint of reality. If you use a generative AI to create a picture of a cat, the AI isn't just mixing pixels.
No.
It's navigating a vast, invisible, multidimensional mathematical map. The latent space where every cat that could exist is encoded. The final rendered picture is just one single, specific output from that infinite potential.
I see. So the universe is the ultimate generative AI, and life, in its infinite forms, is the endless rendering of potential configurations.
Exactly. The universe is optimizing for the experience of its own potential. It's exploring the latent space of all possible life forms.
So the development of the eye or the wing, therefore, has two motives.
Yes. The old view, to see the
Mm.
predator, to fly
Yeah.
from the fire. The new avatar view, to see the beauty, to dance with the wind, to experience the full range of sensation.
The struggle is not just to survive, it's the necessary friction required for exquisite, complex self-expression.
Right, which means death itself must be redefined in terms of this underlying blueprint.
Death becomes latent space.
When the avatar, the specific rendered configuration, Unit 1, dies, he doesn't go to non-existence. He returns to the source code, the latent space of infinite potential.
So he is unrendered, ready to be rendered into a new optimum form based on the data acquired in the previous life cycle.
The resources, the awareness, the energy are simply being reallocated for the next expression.
So the fear of death, which drove the ego, is ultimately based on a misunderstanding of physics.
It is. It's not deletion. It's an efficient system reboot, a transformation into the highest state of potentiality.
The hegemony of the fear-based evolution theory is completely overthrown by the axiom.
And we replace the push mechanism, being pushed away from death and extinction, with a pull mechanism.
Being pulled forward by the love of life, the desire for full, unique expression, and the realization of potential.
Yes. The zombie asks, how do I avoid dying? The avatar asks, how do I most fully express the optimum? That subtle change in motive force from anxiety to love is the logical key to finding meaning in the system.
We've established that the optimum is dynamic, that it's driven by a desire for expression, and that life is the universe exploring its own potential.
Mm.
But we haven't yet identified who or what is doing the optimizing. We have to ask. The necessity of the witness.
This is the ontological peak of the argument. We must ask the core question. Without awareness, who cares what?
Right. If optimum exists, it must be valued, known, or experienced.
A purely mechanical universe, one made of inert, dead matter, cannot experience value, beauty, or efficiency. It simply is.
So the optimum cannot be a state of matter or a set of physical laws.
No, it must be a state of awareness.
Yeah.
The intelligence that drives the optimization must itself be conscious.
Awareness is the ultimate user looking at the screen. Matter and the laws of physics are the hardware and software, the content.
But without the user, without awareness, the entire system is a beautiful but ultimately meaningless projection. The source states emphatically, the optimum is ultimately awareness enjoying its own potential.
This shifts our perspective completely. We are not experiencing reality.
Reality is experiencing itself through us. Everything else, the man, the tiger, the galaxy, is content within that awareness.
And our source material beautifully describes the two primary modes of experience for this underlying reality, this ultimate dreamer, which explains why both suffering and joy must exist.
A dreaming separation, the game of hide and seek.
This is the mode we just experienced in Section 2, where awareness pretends to be small, mortal, separate, and vulnerable. It becomes Unit 1, the ego, locked in a desperate struggle for survival.
Why is this mode optimum?
Because it allows for the thrill of rediscovery.
You cannot find yourself unless you first manage to forget who you are and pretend to be lost. The suffering, the fear, and the intense struggle of the ego are the necessary tension in the elastic band before it snaps back to lucidity.
So it's the mechanism that generates the necessary data of what it feels like to be finite.
Which makes the suffering not just an accident, but a prerequisite for the ultimate joyful recognition.
Precisely. And then there is B, dreaming unity, the state of rest.
This is the realization that awareness is infinite, unified, and safe. The unstoppable life. No matter how convincing the nightmare of separation gets, the dreamer is fundamentally invulnerable.
The forms change, but the capacity to perceive the awareness itself never dies.
And when we synthesize these two dreams, the tension of separation and the peace of unity, the optimization criteria transforms one last time. It's no longer just survival, and it's no longer merely cold alignment.
It's play, or lila.
Right. Leela is a complex concept in Hinduism, the cosmic play, the divine dance.
How does that fit mathematically into the optimum axiom?
It fits because if reality is perfect at every moment and the underlying substance is sentient and infinite, then the only logical activity left is non-purposive, joyful expression.
The universe becomes awareness dancing with itself simply for the sheer pleasure of movement and sensation.
The star exploding, the man crying, the poet writing all are perfect manifestations of the optimum because they are expressions of the viewer. The optimum is not a destination. The optimum is the viewer.
So the system optimizes for the depth and breadth of its own self-experience.
Yes,
If we are the viewer, the ultimate architect, this brings us back to the immediate application. Trusting the foundation of the future is about trusting ourselves.
it is. Trusting the axiom is fundamentally trusting your own competence as the architect of the experience. The events of your life are happening from you, not to you.
So the whole, which is you, would not present the part, your current experience, with a moment you weren't perfectly capable of handling.
Because that would be suboptimum design.
And the logic of continuity dictates that this moment must be optimum for the next to occur. There can be no true leap forward built on a lie about the present.
We use the analogy of building a house or navigating with GPS. You cannot build the second floor if you wish the first floor were somewhere else.
Right.
Even if the present moment is messy, painful, or confused, it is the perfect set of coordinates for where you are right now.
Yeah.
You cannot navigate optimally if you lie about your current location.
The fact that existence continues, that there is a next second, a next choice, a next conversation, proves that the universe successfully processed the data of now to generate the output of then.
The system is stable, and this ends all true resistance. We stop fighting history, stop fighting our current circumstances, and realize this situation is not a barrier to my path. This situation is the path.
It is the perfect, necessary raw material needed to construct the next moment of creation or the next iteration of the self.
Okay.
We have completed the journey from the local psychological shifts to the global metaphysical conclusion. We have moved from cold logic to a spiritual certainty.
We have.
Now we perform the final logical closure. If we start with the axiom, whatever happens is optimum, how do we logically deduce with mathematical certainty that awareness is the substance?
We need proof that only awareness possesses the necessary properties required to sustain a constant absolute optimum function. So let's follow the deduction chain meticulously.
Okay, requirement 1, inherent intelligence.
For an event to be optimum, it cannot be merely random or accidental. Optimum implies a perfect pattern, a balance, a selection process, a specific necessity embedded in the fabric of reality.
So if the world were made of dead, inert, random matter, events would be merely mechanical collisions. There must be a guiding principle.
Yes, the substance must possess inherent intelligence or self-organizing capability to ensure the most efficient, balanced outcome at all times. Pure chance cannot generate optimum.
Only conscious intelligence generates optimization.
Requirement 2, wholeness, non-duality.
Okay.
For every single event, from a star collapsing to a raindrop falling, to be absolutely optimum for the totality of reality, there can be no internal conflict or competition.
No good force fighting an evil force.
Right. If there were competing forces, the outcome would necessarily be a compromise, never truly optimum for the totality. So the system requires a singular authority.
So there can be only one actor and one substance rearranging itself.
Precisely. The universe must be a closed, single, self-referencing loop. This requirement forces us to non-duality.
Okay, requirement 3, subjectivity, sentience.
We establish that optimum is a value judgment, a quality of experience, like beauty or efficiency.
A sterile mechanical void cannot know optimum. For optimum to exist as a reality, it must be known or felt by the substance itself.
In other words, the one substance must care about its own perfection. It must be sentient, capable of knowing itself and its own quality.
If it wasn't sentient, it would be indifferent to efficiency, and the entire axiom would be meaningless.
It would lack a subject to value the optimum state.
And the fourth requirement, elimination of time.
Right. If whatever happens is optimal in the present tense, then reality is perfect now. It doesn't become perfect in the future, nor was it imperfect in the past.
This requires a substance that is not trapped or bound by time, but is the eternal source.
The container of time eternally present and complete.
And we then perform the logical synthesis. What is the only thing that meets all 4 criteria? Inherently intelligent, unified, sentient, and eternally present.
The final identification is logically, inexorably, awareness. The axiom forces us to the conclusion that the underlying reality is a unified, intelligent, self-knowing consciousness.
That is a stunning logical chain. It uses the cold premise of determinism to prove the existence of a conscious, non-dual spirit. But the proof doesn't stop there. We can also run the inverse.
Yes, why the opposite must be impossible. The inverse proof. Why we wouldn't know a non-optimum reality.
This is critical. We use our own ability to perceive reality as proof of reality's perfect nature. The first argument is intelligibility.
What if reality were truly non-optimum, fundamentally random or chaotic?
Consciousness cannot know or process pure randomness.
No, we can only perceive chaos as static or noise. To know something, it must be intelligible. It must follow a logic or pattern. An optimum reality follows the path of perfect consistency and logic.
So if reality were not optimum, it would be a meaningless chaos that could never register as a coherent, consistent experience within our minds.
We wouldn't know a universe. We would just be a glitch experiencing pure, incomprehensible static. The coherence of our experience proves the coherence of the reality creating the experience.
Argument 2. Resonance, like knows like. This attacks the old dualistic mind-body problem.
Right. If the subject, you, awareness, and the object, reality, the world, are made of different stuff,
Mind versus dead matter.
how can they possibly communicate or interact perfectly? Dualism creates an unbridgeable gap. You would only ever truly know your mental model of reality, never reality itself.
And knowledge would be an approximation full of errors and distortions.
The fact that we can perceive a seamless, coherent, and seemingly external world proves that the knower and the known are in a perfect optimum relationship. The ability to understand the world proves the world is made of the same stuff as the understanding.
Perception.
And finally, the third argument is stability, existence.
If the universe were a non-optimum system, what would happen over infinite time?
A non-optimum system is inherently self-destructive. It accumulates error. In a universe of infinite complexity and scale, if the system were even 0.01% flawed,
If events were merely accidental and not necessary.
that error would compound exponentially and metastasize rapidly. The universe would have collapsed into non-existence instantly, or it would have frozen in an entropic deadlock eons ago.
The very fact that there is a stable, consistent stage upon which we can ask these questions proves, logically, that the system is functioning at optimum capacity.
Existence itself is the ultimate proof that the system is perfect.
This resolves the duality and validates the axiom entirely. Which brings us back to the ultimate psychological state this axiom enables. Amor fati is self-love.
Amor fati, the love of fate,
Yeah.
is so often misunderstood as a passive resignation to a cruel external force.
That is the zombie narrative.
It is. The Avatar narrative, informed by the axiom, shows that amor fati is the logical conclusion of non-duality.
If you, the individual ego, accept that you are truly you, the awareness, then loving your specific fate-loving every twist and turn of the current moment is simply self-love.
It is. It means loving the specific shape your own infinite intelligence has taken in this moment of play. To reject the moment, to wish it were different, or to label it as wrong or suboptimum is quite literally to reject the perfection and intelligence of the ultimate self that is creating the experience. #outro.
We started this deep dive with a pragmatic discussion about personal regret and missing a bus.
Yeah.
And we have ended with a mathematical proof that the universe is a closed loop of infinite, intelligent self-expression where logical error, ultimate failure, and waste are conceptually impossible.
We have forged a new anthropic principle for you, the listener. The universe must be optimum coherent and intelligent, because if it weren't, the required coherence for knowing, for consciousness, would never have arisen to register the flaw.
To know reality is to validate its perfection.
And to know yourself is to find the architect of that perfection.
It has been an extraordinary journey of logic, moving the conversation from the cold efficiency of determinism to the certainty of the divine. The elegance of the logical structure here is truly compelling.
And here is the final provocative thought for you to chew on. Since the ego is the necessary delusion, programmed to fear death, primarily to generate effort and data, what is the optimum aligned action a person should take today if they truly accepted their death was merely a transformation back into latent space?
If a man is completely free of the fear of failure, the fear of change, and the fear of non-existence, what kind of immense, audacious, and utterly fearless creation would that aligned state unleash upon the world?
That is the question of the avatar.
And that is where we leave you for today.